How about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen Podcast.
Steve, do you know what the Amazon rainforest at Stanford have in common?
I'll let you complete the joke. Let's hear it.
They both got cut down.
I knew there was a deforestation there.
Notre Dame deforests the Stanford Cardinal in a whopping victory, 49-7. Welcome to the Four Horsemen Podcast. I'm Dylan, joined by Steve as always. And they got the job done, Steve. I mean, we talked about it. All of us predicted Stanford to cover. We all predicted a close game. And that was the opposite. Notre Dame got the job done. Sure, you can sit at home and say, well, it was just Stanford. And you're right, it just was Stanford. But that's a game we struggle with, and we put them away. Like that, we buried that football team in a pretty dramatic fashion. So what were your thoughts on the game? I was watching it at a sports bar, so I was being a little psychotic. Did you get to see it live? That's another thing we're keeping track this year.
I did. And I will also be watching the game live this weekend because golf isn't going to be a possibility for me. Just too much family stuff. So I'll be at home watching the game live this weekend. So we can get ahead of that. Now from the top, Dylan, what is it that we always say about great teams?
Good teams win, but great teams cover.
Exactly. So we covered the 28.5. And yes, it's just lowly Stanford, but we dominated. We only gave up 87 yards through the air, which is insane, and 113 yards on the ground. So that's literally 200 yards on the dot. I mean, that's defensive dominance. And then, hey, Riley Leonard, welcome to the show, man. 94.6 QBR, 4 total touchdowns on the day. Using his legs in certain points to evade pressure, kept his eyes downfield. Still scrambled when it was appropriate to do so, pick up a first down, move the chains, keep things alive, but also keeping his head downfield in order to try to throw the ball and find an open receiver, which is everything that we were asking for. And Dylan, we've always said it from the beginning of the year, there have been accuracy issues with Leonard, which persist, and that's fine. He's getting better, and I think you can clue us into some of those statistics and everything. But really the main point when it comes to Riley Leonard and the future of this Notre Dame program as we head into the final half of this season, we're halfway through, which is insane. It's going by quick. It's that we don't need Riley Leonard to be a Tua Tagovailoa, or we don't need him to be a Carson Beck. He can be a Tim Tebow, right? Tim Tebow was not the greatest passing quarterback in college, but he's widely regarded as one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time. Use your legs, go to your strengths, and you're going to have teams start to pack the box, and then you can use play action and these RPOs and the new system that has entered, kind of the college football milieu within the last few years with kind of option plays. And you're going to have the opportunity to find guys, in the open field making big plays. And if you can get them wide open on play action by 5 or 6 yards, you don't have to be deadly accurate. You just have to get it in the general vicinity, find them open, and then we're cooking. So that's kind of the general wrap up I have. I'll turn over to you. Any reactions, any stats? What popped out at you, Dylan?
Well, we were harsh on Riley Leonard to start the season, which I think is our job to be. Like, we are homers, but we have to be, I think, a little bit realistic in how we see things, or at least honest in how we see things, which I hope every other content creator does as well. And we were harsh because he wasn't playing good. So if we're going to be harsh, we got to be fair. We got to give him the props when it's due. And these last few weeks, Riley Leonard's been really good. Was my horseman last game against Louisville. He's going to be my horseman this game against Stanford. I thought he played excellently. 3 passing touchdowns. Sometimes your brain just forgets how to work. Great with his legs, extended plays. The one play where he runs around in a circle and then ends up getting 15 yards on like a 3rd and 7 was money. He's allowing this offense to succeed and thrive at the level we expected it to, because Mike Denbrock is a pretty good offensive coordinator. He's been great at calling plays. Guys have been open. The offense has been pretty efficient lately. Now we got to see that against a good opponent. Like, we need to see a full 4 quarters performance of that offense against a quality team before we can kind of jump for joy. But it's getting there. So credit to Riley Leonard. He's battling. He's coming off an injury, and he seems to be getting more and more comfortable being himself, and then also playing in the system. So I'm pretty psyched with the way the performance has been. The receivers are doing a good job. Bo Collins had another great game. Chris Mitchell got a touchdown. He's starting to break out. And then the running backs, man, like Jadarian Price. Holy cow! You know, I think it was you that put on the Twitter the jump cut, right? He's the king of jump cuts. That touchdown he scored, it's ridiculous. And the offensive line's been doing a great job, at least with run blocking. Anthony Knapp's been sealing up the left side. Pendleton's been playing well in the run game. So, you know, Jeremiah Love, who's, I think I saw a stat, he's first in the country in missed tackles for like per rush attempt or something. He's actually ahead of the kid at Boise State, the Heisman winner. He's something special, man. We're not going to see him beyond 3 years, nor should we. Like, I hope he hits the NFL
go make
next
your
year.
money.
Same thing with Audric. With running backs, my mentality is totally different. It's just go get your money because your career in the NFL is short. So, you know, it is what it is. But there's, Steve, let's talk about the running back depth, man. Like, it wasn't an embarrassment.
My horseman of the week, yeah. Dylan, we ran for 229 yards on the day, and we had one player that had over 50 yards. And it was Jeremiah Love with 6 rushes for 53 yards, averaging 8.8 per carry. You know, Jadarian 49 and a tut. Keedron Young, man, oh man, is he going to be the next Audric Estime, 39 yards. Aeneas Williams, that unbelievable breakout touchdown run, 28 yards. And then Devin Ford, you know, the super senior at this point, the transfer a couple of years back from Penn State, you know, three touches for 20 yards. That's a stable, man. That's a stable of horses. There's 5 horsemen there, but there's, you know, there really is just 4, but we're in good shape. You know, Jeremiah and Jadarian are a great 1-2 punch now, and the future down the road with Keedron Young and Aeneas Williams. You know, again, we tweeted out from the account. We basically just copy pasted Audric Estime and Kyron Williams, and we got Young and Williams. So,
yep. And think about the
versatility
when we play those guys, right? Like, Keedron Young can be your third down back. He can be your goal line back. And then with Aeneas Williams, the reason he's a Kyron Williams clone is because of his pass pro. Right? He's so good in pass protection already. He's not afraid to hit. And he's going to catch the ball from the backfield too. So there's so much versatility in this room that I love it going forward. And the offensive line is hurt, but developing, right? Anthony Knapp's getting a year's worth of reps. Sam Pendleton, a year's worth of reps. We got Billy Schrouth coming back. Emil Wagner has been super solid, man, on the right side there. It's his first year starting. I expect him to come back and be the starting right tackle next year. This offense line's good, and they're recruiting well, of course, as always. So, you know, we've talked about this year being kind of the window, but I think what we mean by that is it's the start of the window for Notre Dame was 2024 when they had all the pieces together. Now, injuries have really derailed that, and we'll talk about one in a moment. But I think it's 24, 25, 20. It continues because of the way we're recruiting. And I think the future is going to be really, really bright. But the season took a little bit of a dark turn, Steve, with devastating news in the secondary.
It hurts, man. It hurts. And it hurts that we just talked about it a couple weeks back when, goodness, I forget his name now because he's a relic of the past. Who's the Jaden Mickey decided to sit out, rightfully so. Hey, again, you know, do your thing with whatever works for you. But we talked about it at the time. It's like, it's football, man. Injuries happen, and there's, you know, you may not be the feature guy right now, but it could happen. And Benjamin Morrison, some sort of hip issue. I don't know the specifics on it. If you know, then please share. But Benjamin Morrison has most likely and honestly, hopefully, played his last game in a Notre Dame uniform. Again, go make your money. You're going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. Go get paid. Go secure a long-term contract for your family. Benjamin Morrison, yeah, after Julian Love a couple of years back, kind of exalted the position. Benjamin Morrison really stepped up, and man, oh man, the things that he's done for this secondary, and yeah, now he's basically kind of mentored Christian Gray behind him, and there's still plenty of depth. I would say there's plenty of talent. Depth is an issue, but there's still a ton of talent. It's just it needs to develop. We have the talent to win out the regular season, as we've discussed last week. Will that translate in January and beyond? We'll see. But Benjamin Morrison, happy trails. I wish it didn't end this way because, man, oh man, was he something special.
Yep. And he kind of signifies that change where Notre Dame's secondary was always a liability, and now it's the strength of the team, right? That he's kind of that first wave of Coach Mickens guys who he then develops, right? And you're like the job Mickens did with Xavier Watts is outrageous. You get a guy who came in as a receiver, played receiver like at the bottom of the depth chart for a few years before they just decided, oh, hey, you're going to go to defense, maybe play linebacker, maybe play safety. And now he's the best safety in the country 2 years in a row. Our secondary is special, and one of the bright sides with all these injuries is we're going to get a really experienced young team next year, right? Because Leonard Moore is going to start 6+ games this year. He's going to be pretty ready for his sophomore year. Christian Gray in his sophomore year is going to spend the whole year as a starter. The offensive line, right? We're banking that experience and that development early at the expense of the current team. So by no means would I like that, but that is a takeaway. And I think it's something that is going to make this team better in the long term, because you look at the linebacker group too, Steve. Holy. Drake Bowen is having a season. He is just getting better and better every game. Kingston Viliamuasa, what a player. You almost forget about Jack Kaiser, the main guy there, because of how great the young guys have been. And obviously Jaden Osbury just flying all over the place. So,
and then Jalen Sneed.
Yeah, and I forgot about Jalen Sneed there, right? So, and look, linebackers are going to be really good for a while because there's always great classes coming in under Marcus Freeman with the linebackers. So I'm loving it in that sense. A little concerned about the injuries moving forward, but look, you beat the absolute hell out of Stanford, and that gives me a lot of confidence moving forward. And like you said, I think they should win every game on their schedule regardless of the injuries. Come playoff time, that'll be a little bit of a different story, but I don't think there's an excuse not to finish 11-1. I barring something crazy, I think 11-1 should be what this team finishes as. And I'm not being, I think, a homer. I think I'm holding them accountable to the standard that we expect them to be at, which is look at the schedule. You probably shouldn't have gone 11-1 to begin with. You probably should have gone 12-0. So, we'll see. We still got half a season to play out, but feeling better than I was 4 weeks ago. I'll tell you that much.
Completely agree. And then between last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, with Louisville, and then this Stanford game, this defense, when I look at them, especially the front seven, especially the linebackers, when they run around and when they hit, it reminds me of the Georgia defense from 2 years ago, or of the last 2 years, or 3 years. It is a elite SEC defense playing in South Bend, Indiana. I mean, we have lockdown corners. We have a great secondary. Defensive line, they show up at certain points. There's other points where they, it's inconsistent, but there's still a ton of talent there. They're really good, just not great, but still really good, which is good. But those linebackers, man, if there's a running back in the backfield and they call a toss sweep, give up.
Yep.
Just give up. Save your fucking career and your ACL.
Well, and even if it's not the linebackers, it's the Don Schuler shooting the alley and blowing somebody up behind the line of scrimmage. Like, he's done that 5 times this season at least. It's just, I love what I'm seeing from the young players, and that gives me a lot of hope. And I really hope Notre Dame makes the playoff, because I want Marcus Freeman to stay around, because the recruiting is great, and I think the culture is great. I think the boys are really buying in. I think they're very tightly connected. I think it's a really close bond group. And I could see them developing into elite NFL players together. And I hope that continues. But we still got many challenges ahead. And the Stanford game was good, but the run defense, it's getting better, but it's a little concerning to me, and that's going to be a problem this week against Georgia Tech. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say with the Stanford game. Just well done, boys. You kept the Legends Trophy home in South Bend. Thanks for Nerd for coming on. I love our Stanford friends. They're great fan base. They hung in there, but this wasn't their year, and that's okay. So I think that's it for me. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on with the Stanford game?
Nope, all good. It was fun. That's what I'll say. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, let's briefly talk about last week in the world of college football, because boy, oh boy, were there ever some big games. Steve, did you catch any of them? And if so, which ones were the most interesting to you?
I started watching the beginning of the goodness me, the Oregon Ohio State game. I saw the basically the entire fourth quarter and overtime of Penn State versus USC. Really upset that a meteor didn't just come down in that game, but hey, you know what? A team won. I'm not going to say the better team because I think there's no redeeming quality to either school, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't see the Red River rivalry, but I knew that was going to happen.
You didn't need to.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's in a tough spot, man. Their offensive line is a sieve. Their quarterback is fucking horrible. To be fair to the Sooners, the game was close, and they just kept turning the ball over in the red zone, and then at the 50 and near halftime, and it was like by the time it got to halftime, the game was over because of it. But yeah, you're right. Texas is just a really good football team, and yeah, I know I cut you off there, but I want to give you props, Steve. 6-0 on the week in your predictions. Guys, Steve is on a generational run, okay? Now, I did better against the spread, but that doesn't matter. Steve, listen, I'm going to go through your picks from last week, okay? I got them here. Cal Pitt, that is a 50-50 game that ended by 2 points. You had Pitt, and Pitt won. USC, Penn State went to overtime. It took USC pissing the game away, but you took Penn State, and they won. Red River, okay, yes, Texas was a big favorite. We all saw it coming, but it's Red River, right? Anything could happen, which was my reasoning last week. I was wrong. You were right. 3-0. LSU, Ole Miss, game goes to overtime. We all picked LSU. That you're 4-0. Then you get to Oregon, Ohio State, which is I actually didn't get to see it because I was out at the time. It looked like the craziest game of the year. It looked like just a ridiculous ending. For it to end that way, Oregon wins. You got Oregon, and of course you took the Irish. 6-0, man. How are you doing this? This is generational. I hope you're betting on it because you'll be so rich by the end of the year. I'm not, because I'm not able to in South Carolina, but I just keep every single week. You make the great graphic. Everyone go online to Twitter and Instagram. I need to start posting it to Instagram. It's completely on me that it's not up there. It's my fault, and I'm sorry. I'll be better about it. But Dylan makes a graphic every week detailing all of our picks so that way you guys can follow along. I'm just a fucking moneymaker, and I send that graphic in a text to like 5 or 6 different gamblers that I know back home in Boston, and I just say, just bet them all, 1 unit each, and make some fucking money. And it's somehow working. I don't know, man. I'm just... And we got a great matchup. We got some great matchups for this week. I'm already eyeing a couple of what, where I see some value. And hey, I might go 0-6 this week. I might go 6-0 or somewhere in between. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun being on a heater. I wish I was cashing in on it because I could use the money, pal.
Don't we all, man? Don't we all? I'm just doing some math here, man. You are 30-11 straight up. Okay? So you're 30 for 41 on the year, which is 73% straight up. That is outrageous. Outrageous. And even against the spread, I think you're still our leader. I think you're 25-16, which is well above 50%. So I don't know if this heater is going to last forever, folks, but boy, is Steve ever on one. So I'm a little afraid to go up against you this week, but is this a good time to transition into our Week 8 games and predictions?
All right, let's do it. Before I start listing off the games, anything that you want people to know, or should I get right into it?
Blake Hebert, quarterback from Clemson, flips to Notre Dame, as does an offensive lineman from Iowa. Absolutely love it. Recruiting's going well, but we'll save that for another time. Just let people know that the sky is not falling ever since Deuce committed. But other than that, let's hit into Week 8.
Perfect. Okay, first game we have 12 p.m. noon game. I think this is on Fox because it's Big Ten. It's the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who are unranked, but they are 5-1 with Dylan Raiola, the 5-star phenom at QB, on the road playing at Indiana, University of Indiana. Holy shit! I just that just broke my brain. They're playing at Indiana. Kurt Signetti, the coach that transferred from JMU, and he took a bunch of players with them. High-powered offense, especially through the air. They're a great passing attack, but they haven't really played anybody yet. They are ranked 16 in the country. Indiana is favored currently by 6.5.
So this is the best opponent Indiana will have faced so far in the season. Nebraska is, I think, 5-1. They had a close loss to Illinois that they pissed away as well. So I'm of two minds. I think the line is a little high. I'm going to take Nebraska to cover at least because 6.5 seems a bit much to me, and it's a way to hedge my bets. However, Nebraska is known for just losing one-score games. It's just what Nebraska does. And Kurt Signetti, look him up. He's a winner. That was his line. I'm going with the Hoosiers, man. Give me Indiana, but I'll take Nebraska against the spread.
Everything in my soul is telling me to take Indiana and trust Signetti, but there's just something about those Cornhuskers, man. It's just be good. Just be fucking good so you can start pulling recruits away from those dog shit teams up north. So I'm going to ride with the Husks money line. I love me a good plus sign value. Speaking of which, plus sign value, number 6 Miami on the road in Louisville. That's also a 12 p.m. game in Kentucky. Miami is favored by 4.5.
Oh, man, Steve, that's a tough one. We saw Louisville. We know they're a good football team, but we also know we could have beat them worse than we did. So it's like, how do you evaluate Louisville? I will say this. Miami's defense has struggled at times. Miami has also been in way too many close games for my liking. It reminds me of a lot of Notre Dame 2012, where they just kept winning one-score games to an undefeated season. Some people say the ACC refs are rigging the games for them. That's not for me to say. I'm just putting that out there and going to let you guys make your mind. Steve, give me Louisville. Give me the Cardinals. I like their quarterback. I like their coach. I like their defense. I like the way they play. I think Miami's due for a loss, and this is a tough road game. Louisville's going to be a banging good atmosphere for that one. I'm taking the Cardinals, both against the spread and straight up.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm going to take a money line. I like that plus sign. I'm going with Louisville too. Again, I'm tempted not to doubt Cam Ward because he's one hell of a quarterback, but there's been some chinks in the armor. He hasn't been flawless and he hasn't been perfect. He's been great, hasn't been perfect. I think Tyler Shaw or whatever the hell that guy, that 7th-year super senior quarterback's name is, at home, I think he's going to settle in and move the ball against that Miami defense, which, as you said, has been a little bit suspect. So give me that plus sign. I'll take Louisville money line. Now we have a interesting one. We have number 24 Michigan in a Big Ten matchup on the road at Illinois, ranked number 22. This game is at 3:30 p.m. Something worth noting is that Illinois is wearing their like throwback jerseys. Basically, they're going to look like they're playing a game from like 1927. So they're the modern helmets, but they're meant to look like the old leather helmets, which I think is really cool. And that's something that you have to know going into gambling. So Dylan, who are you taking? Oh, I'm sorry. Michigan is favored by 3.5.
So I don't have a good pulse on Michigan this year. I took Texas to win, but that was obvious. I was wrong to take USC to beat them, and I was wrong to say they would beat Washington. So I'm not having a great year with Michigan. I'm looking at some stats here because Illinois, keep in mind they beat Nebraska. They're a tough team, and they gave Penn State a really good game. They are 81st in the country in passing yards per game. Michigan is 253rd. On the flip side, passing defense, Michigan is 226th in the country. That can't be right. There's no way there's 226 teams. I think my app is off here.
Yeah.
Point being, Michigan is not a great passing yard defense, whereas Illinois is. So you have an Illinois strength against a Michigan weakness there. However, Michigan is an excellent run ball team, and Illinois isn't really a good run team. So to me, it's a very intriguing matchup. I know this is a long-winded way. I'm trying to convince myself either way here. I think Michigan is a home team in the sense that when they play Oregon at home, I might pick Michigan. But I don't really think they're a great road team. I'm going to go Illinois. I'm going to take the Fighting Illini. I think Michigan is a good team this year. They're fine. The Big Ten is tough, and I don't think they're going to get it done.
I always said that Michigan has 4 to 5 losses in them this year, and this is going to be another one. Go Illini. Fuck it. Let's go nuts. I might honestly go straight money line with every single underdog this week. So let's take it. Let's take that plus sign with Illinois. Another big one. The final 2 games here in the SEC. These are marquee matchups. They're going to be a lot of fun. We have a great slate of college football coming into this weekend, and these are quasi elimination games. Right? And we can expound upon that more after we get through the gambling, just to kind of talk the state of college football, which I think will be an interesting topic. But sticking to the gambling, we have number 7 Alabama, who narrowly avoided a loss this past week at South Carolina, on the road at number 11 Tennessee, that struggled and against a really bad Florida team. They are a rival. They were on the road. That game went to overtime. Tennessee came out on top. Vols on top. Alabama. This game is at 3:30 p.m. in Neyland Stadium. Bama's getting 3 points.
Well, these teams share a lot in common because they were both upset the week before. Tennessee loses to Arkansas and Alabama loses to Vanderbilt. And the week before that, they both had big wins. With the way Alabama's playing, I'm tempted to say you're crazy to take them. However, Tennessee's not been playing well either. This is a rivalry game. It's one of my favorite SEC rivalry games. I feel like it's so underrated. It's a
great color matchup.
It's a great color matchup. It hasn't been competitive, to be fair. So that's kind of why it's lost its luster. But historically, Tennessee's been, historically maybe the second best team in the SEC, right? LSU in recent years may have passed them, but historically Tennessee was that kind of powerhouse to Alabama. Steve, give me the Volunteers. They're at home. That we remember what that environment was 2 years ago or last year. Remember the hell they beat them? It was insane.
And
with the way Alabama's playing, they ain't getting it done. Vols, money line, lock it in.
I'm with you. It's going to be a raucous stadium. It's going to be absolutely insane in Neyland. That's a stadium that I would love to go visit. That would be a great game to go see there. Yeah, I think Vols on top. I'm with you. Give me another money line. Give me some plus signs here because
we're making money.
Bama has not quite impressed me just yet. And I think that they have at least one more loss in them in this season. So this might be it. Final game of the slate. It's number 5 Georgia at number 1 Texas. 7:30 p.m. Texas is favored in DKR by 5 points.
Man, that's a hard one. I think Texas is great, but I think they're getting a little overrated, and I think Georgia's getting a little underrated because of the Alabama game. I think on a neutral site I might take Georgia, but we're in Austin. Texas has got the quarterback advantage, and that's a big one for me. A lot of times in really close games, I like obviously Ewing more than, or Ewers, whatever his name is, more than Carson Beck. He's just a more dynamic quarterback. Texas's defense was a question mark this year, but they've been playing really good ball. I'll tell you what, Steve. I'll cut it in half. I'm going to take the Longhorns outright, but I'll take Georgia to cover. That's a tough one, and I don't like it.
Okay, fair enough. Should I go full YOLO? I'm gonna do it.
Hey,
I'm gonna do it.
You're the guy who's got the hot touch.
Listen, this is 2007 all over again. And what was 2007 in a single word? Chaos. And that is what we are going to have in the college football landscape after this weekend. And after I go 5 for 5 in these picks, picking the underdog, give me Georgia to win outright money line.
Man, if you parlayed those 5 together and go 5
for 5. That's the first thing that came to my brain, dude.
I mean, I'm not going to give anyone gambling advice on strategy or anything. Just gamble responsibly or don't at all. Part of this is to mainly just talk about the games themselves and give a prediction on the winner. But man, on the gambling side, Steve, 5 underdogs, that is potential for big money. And you know what? I'm with you most of the way. I think I took 3 home underdogs, and I took the other 2 to cover. So this is going to be a good week of football. I'm really excited for it. This season has been awesome. I feel like I'm more engaged this season than I have been in many years. And it's just a shame it's going by so quick. Maybe that's a product of getting older as, time flies more and more. But, man, I miss the days where college football seemed to be an eternity of a season.
Yep, I'm with you. And I'm currently, just out of curiosity, I'm pulling up my DraftKings app. I can't bet on it, but I can still go and get lines on it. And I'm going to see what that parlay looks like. But I think that, like I mentioned, just a quick callback that we can discuss kind of the general landscape of college football and the playoff. I think it was Joel Klatt that had just tweeted out that Notre Dame is currently minus 120 to make the playoff at this point, which, means that the odds are in their favor currently. That they are favored to make the playoff. So, yeah, and just win out. Just win out your schedule, take care of business, and you're effectively guaranteed at 11-1. So just take care of business, and you're good from a Notre Dame standpoint. And we'll obviously continue to address them week by week. But you have both Tennessee and Alabama with 1 loss, and then you have Texas is undefeated, but Georgia already has a loss. Now, if Georgia loses this game, I don't think that they're going to qualify for the conference championship game. They still might be able to. I don't know. So please provide some insight there, Dylan. But this could also be an elimination game, not only for Georgia, but also for the loser of Bama versus Tennessee. So there is that dynamic. I know people have talked about they didn't like the expanded playoff because they said it diminishes the regular season. But in a manner of speaking, I mean, we're weeks before Halloween, and these are effectively playoff matchups now in some of the biggest marquee moments, and we're going to be able to watch some great football that has us all heavily invested, that has massive ramifications. So, Dylan, riff on that a little bit.
It's tough because, I've had a good pulse historically with the playoff committee in the 4-team era. Nobody knows what the 12-team era is going to look like. And one of the reasons the Big Ten and the SEC are kind of wanting to collude to change the rules is so they can guarantee that strength of schedule, i.e. for the conferences with more good teams, won't be punished for it. And maybe the committee will go with that. Maybe they won't. So, Alabama, Tennessee, one of them's going to have 2 losses. I don't think a 2-loss Alabama's out of the playoff, not in a 12-team playoff, but that's not mainly the issue. The issue is Alabama's still got to play 6 more quality SEC games, right? So, just bear with me a second, folks. I'm going to pull the Alabama schedule up to see what, just as an example, what they have to finish the season on. So they play Tennessee, obviously, this week. And the rest of the schedule looks like this, Steve, okay? Ranked Missouri. At ranked LSU. Home to Mercer, the Alabama Classic. At Oklahoma. And home to Auburn. If they drop to Tennessee, what are the odds they win out the rest of the year?
Exceedingly slim.
Right? And does a 3-loss Alabama get in? I don't know. It depends, right? How many 3-loss teams do we have? How many 3-loss SEC teams do we have? If LSU beats Alabama and they have 3 losses, well, Alabama's not getting in over LSU, I'll tell you that much. So it's intriguing. Would I say eliminator from the playoff standpoint? No, not yet. Eliminator from the SEC title game? Probably. And the reason I say that, Steve, is I think the SEC has moved, as well as the Big Ten, to a divisionless conference, and I think just the 2 highest conference records play each other. And if Alabama drops that game, they have the head-to-head over Georgia, so they could get back into it that way. But it would be tough, right? And if you don't have that SEC game, does that hurt you, right? Let's say another SEC team gets into the championship game, loses. Does the committee say, okay, well, that team lost in the SEC title game, they're ahead of Alabama now who didn't get to play in it? Or, do they prefer the record? We don't know. So it's really interesting because so many teams are still in it. So that's the flip side of the expanded playoff, is we get a little more excitement in that sense. But the honest answer is I don't know. I think Michigan is in a playoff elimination game. I think Tennessee, Georgia are fighting for the right to play in the SEC title game. Mm-hmm. But who knows, man? How do you see it? Like, I don't think there's a wrong answer here because we don't know. It's the first year of it. Yeah,
it's certainly going to be chaos. I think we'd be hard pressed to see a 3-loss team in. Even a 3-loss Georgia. I mean, at a certain point, like, you have to uphold the integrity of the sport and just say, like, I mean, you had 12 fucking chances, man. Like, we have too many teams that are just playing too well. Unless again we go full 2007 and it's just like, the even the top 10 is lit up with a bunch of 2 and 3 loss teams. But it seems like it's starting to get into do or die territory with some of these big marquee matchups, which it's going to be great when Notre Dame plays Navy and Army, both both undefeated top 25 teams at this point in time.
And they have a lot on the line too, Steve. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the new system, but the G5 is guaranteed 1 spot. It's not an automatic berth. They'll be ranked wherever. If they're the 25th ranked team, they'll be the 12th seed. But the G5 champion that is ranked the highest gets in. So right now, it's a battle between Boise State in the Mountain West, and then you're looking at the AAC winner, which might be Army, it might be Navy, it could be someone else. We're not there yet. But that is going to have huge implications on them because they're trying to get ahead of Boise State in the rankings. So if you go out and play Notre Dame, you beat Notre Dame, forget about it, you're ahead of Boise State forever. But if you play them close, if you have a respectable game with Notre Dame, that might affect them in the committee's eyes. So there's so much on the line, and I think that's what is going to make college football pretty interesting. And you're right in the sense that, like, this will be an eliminator for somebody, just maybe in hindsight. Like, we might have to wait a few weeks to see how things shake up because, like you said, all of this is relative to how this landscape looks. If we have a bunch of 10-2 teams like we did a couple years ago, yeah, a 3-loss team's going to have a hard time getting in. But if everybody's 3 or 4 losses, then then the fun begins. So, time will tell, but I'm liking the season so far. I can say that much at least.
Yep, exactly. It's this new expanded playoff simultaneously did 2 things. It made losses more forgiving. Think about the last 25 years as being a Notre Dame fan, right? It's a loss ruined your fucking Saturday. It ruined your month. It ruined your fall. Because it's just like, of course you're still going to tune in and watch every single game, but you're like, we're just not going to make it. We're just, we're a one-loss team. We're not going to make the BCS championship. When it was the BCS, when it was the college football playoff, it's like, it was only 4 teams, and we were again, with no conference championship, we were more likely than not going to be on the bubble and whatnot. So it was miserable to watch when you had one loss. And despite that NYU absolute catastrophe and debacle, Notre Dame, just handle your shit. You're 11-1. You're in the playoff. So there's the forgiveness and grace there. There's in a manner of speaking, there's a little bit less pressure, which is nice. And for me as a fan, and an esteemed journalist covering this team, then it takes pressure off me, makes it a bit more fun and enjoyable to watch. But then on the flip side of it, as we've been talking about ad nauseum the last 5-10 minutes, the matchups that it brings and some of these games, once you do get that one loss, avoiding that second loss because you know that you still have a couple of games on the schedule that are going to be iffy, making sure you take care of your shit, and the kind of the ramifications around weekends like this. This is the essence of the sport. This is what we live for. It's bringing the juice. I love it. I love the expanded playoff. I love the state of college football that it's in. Could go without some, the talk about venture capital getting in. I could go without the money and, kind of ruining the purity of the sport that we love and adore so much. But by and large, nil and transfer portal, there can be some reworkings. Some of it's bullshit. Some of it's good, but
It's coming.
But this is a really healthy sport that we are currently in. And it's been an absolute enjoyment to watch, man.
So I got 3 things I hope I can remember to respond to. First of all, it would be hilarious if Notre Dame lost to NYU and not NIU. Just easy mistake, but it was hilarious to think. I was thinking, did we lose to New York University? That would be amazing. If we had an expanded playoff, Steve, Notre Dame wins the national championship in '93. There's no doubt about that.
We are 1993 national champions.
Yep, and maybe some other years as well. And I guarantee you we don't lose 88s at all because that team was never going to lose a game that year. And last thing, Steve, here's a little transition because you were talking about Notre Dame with a loss and what this now means. This has forced the team to lock in, right? A loss in past years can demoralize a group. I mean, look at that FSU game from 2014. I mean, we had suffered a lot of injuries, but you lose 4 of your next 5 games after starting the season 6-0. A loss can derail a season. By keeping the opportunity for the playoffs still alive, giving teams more to play for, this team is locked in, and they know they have to be basically perfect to get in now. So in that sense, it's been good. Do you think, with all the chaos we've seen, that Notre Dame can get in with a 2-loss record? Is that possible? Because we're seeing a lot of teams lose.
Definitely possible, but there's got to be some help there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need a lot of chaos.
Yeah, and just a quick callback to the 5 games that I took with the 5 underdogs. If you do parlay each of them, which would be the following to win money line: Louisville, Nebraska, Tennessee, Illinois, Georgia. That is plus 10,785. So a $10 bet would win you $1,088.
Holy shit!
Just something to think about, people.
And to be fair, like as someone who occasionally will put money on sports because it's legal in Canada, I don't love parlays because it's just you're creating a greater chance of failure, especially when you're taking underdogs. However, you and I sat here and could easily rationalize all 5 of those teams winning. Like, you picked them all 5 to win, and I was very close to doing the same, right? I got 3 of them. I could easily see the other 2 hitting. It's not a crazy bet to make. Like, I might put $10 on it because it's possible. Like, think of this, like the spreads in all those games is really low, and every team there is a home underdog. So I'm not. I'm very intrigued by it. And that's what I love about this sport, Steve, because something like that can happen.
Yep.
You'll never see that in the NFL. Screw the NFL.
Yeah. Yep. We're college football's in a great spot. So I think that wraps up gambling talk. I think that wraps up kind of the our general adoration of this wild and crazy sport that we love so much. Apparently, there's going to be a game this week in Atlanta, Georgia. Dylan,
sir,
see us into this next section of the podcast.
Technically a neutral site game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, the new beautiful stadium there between the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Because it's a neutral site game, but technically a Georgia Tech home game, I don't know how the ticket allocation's working. I don't know how much of it went to the general public. So I'm not really sure what the crowd's going to look like. Obviously, there's more Notre Dame fans out there than Georgia Tech, but they're the home team. It's in their city. We'll see. This is a game, Steve, that at once upon a time may have been considered a rivalry. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech have played quite a few times, especially in the 70s. I mean, that Rudy play was against Georgia Tech. And when Georgia Tech won its first national championship in the early parts of the 20th century, Knute Rockne got them on the schedule a couple years later. Because that's the mentality Notre Dame had. We wanted to play the best, which is why we have history with a lot of historic teams. Georgia Tech's one of them. Georgia Tech is a program on the rise. They're in Atlanta, the hotbed of recruiting. They are such a great institution, one of the best engineering schools in the world. I have a lot of love for Georgia Tech. I really like them. I'm glad they're in our conference. And the sky's the limit for them. It really is. They're a great program to have in the ACC. So let's talk some football. Georgia Tech is 5-2 on the year. They've lost to Syracuse, which was a tight one, and they lost to Louisville in a game that really could have gone either way. They had, I think, a blocked punt go for a touchdown that kind of ended up being the difference, something there. I like Georgia Tech. They've got a great quarterback, a dual-threat quarterback in King. His QBR on the year has him 15th in the country. He's a weapon, and rush defense has been our problem. They also have a really good running back. They also have a really good receiver. Georgia Tech is a good football team. They lost to, those two tight games, so it's not like they're invincible. And the best win might be Florida State, although is that anyone's best win anymore? Who knows? It's going to be a good one, Steve. I'm looking forward to it. What's your take, and how are you seeing it?
Yeah, Haynes King was either a very high 4-star or a 5-star quarterback that was originally at Texas A&M, and then he transferred over to Georgia Tech. So very talented coming out of college. He is a dual threat. He can run the ball. Georgia Tech, they've gotten away from like that wing T, triple option offense, but they still do throw in a lot of counters. They throw in a lot of motion, and they do throw, they have still a very unique running game, right? So still be on the lookout for that, but he is a talented passer. He only, he takes care of the football. He's only thrown one interception. I think he has 15 touchdown passes on the season. So be a Haynes King respecter. I certainly am. Mobile running backs do concern me, as they always do for the University of Notre Dame Fighting Irish, for one fucking reason or another. But I think that when it comes to just pure athletes and bodies, especially in the trenches, that's where Notre Dame is going to tend to have their advantage. The neutral site will help Notre Dame, but we'll ultimately see what that split will be. But even if it's a 60-40, Georgia Tech friendly crowd, it's still going to be quite to a benefit of Notre Dame, basically. So I think that does effectively cancel it out. It is indoors, so you're not going to see any weather or any zany kind of wind or anything like that. So it's going to just be straight up bodies on bodies. We're going to be able to throw the ball. We're going to be able to pass and everything. So I'm feeling good about it, but don't be surprised if this is tight, especially in the first half. Think of it as a prize fight. Think of this as a game where we're probably, both teams will probably start slow as they kind of throw a couple of jabs and feel each other out. But I'm really hoping for that Riley Leonard knockout punch in the second half, and I think he has the talent for it. I think Notre Dame's roster is incredible, despite the injuries that we have, despite the depth issues. Like we've talked about, there's still plenty of talent, and I think these boys are coming to play. So I am feeling good about it. But actually, let me quickly get the line. Notre Dame is currently actually favored by 8.5 points with an over under of 50. So they are expecting some decent points in this game. And they're expecting Notre Dame to win by a bit over a touchdown. So, if you want to get into the actual gambling of it, I think that's a pretty decent line, because I could still see, unfortunately, the Yellow Jackets coming out and winning this game, but I could also see Notre Dame kind of putting it away by 10, 14 points, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the entirety of my thoughts, Dylan.
Yeah, I think ESPN's FPI has Georgia Tech at 16-ish% chance to win based on their, advanced analytics, which of course is just, a probability. It's not a prediction or anything. I think, Steve, this is going to be a frustrating game, and I think this is going to be a struggle for our defense. I think we're going to give up a lot of points. The reason for that is Benjamin Morrison is out, so you're going to have two young corners defending talented receivers. That's going to be a problem. And then our rush defense has improved, but it's been the weakness of the defense so far this year, and you've got a great running back, and you got a dual-threat quarterback who has a cannon. I don't expect them to, throw all over us down the field, but they can stretch the field. They can force us to respect them. However, defensively, I'm not overly impressed with Georgia Tech. I think we'll have lots of opportunity to put points up ourselves. I think Riley Leonard's legs, like always, will be a huge problem. And Georgia Tech is, they're a decent rush defense, but I don't know if anyone can stop this Notre Dame rushing attack at the moment. So that's how I see it. I think it's going to be a close game. I could see it going either way. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost. It's certainly possible. I think we're in for a dogfight. But I think it's one we should win. I think it's one, even with the injuries, Notre Dame should get up there and put them away. But that's just my biased homer take on it.
I'm with you. I have a score written down, Dylan.
I do as well, sir.
Do you want to do the thing?
I did. I flip-flopped on a score line here. I got this game 34-24 Fighting Irish over the Georgia Tech Stingers, or Yellow Jackets. It's going to be a good game. I think it'll be close for longer than we want, but at the end, I do have Notre Dame covering. And what do we say about great teams?
Great teams cover. So we have the same exact margin of victory, and I do see a Notre Dame victory, so that is the good news. And it's me, guys. Of course, I was going to pick Notre Dame to win. I just have a different score, but close, but not that close. 27-17 Notre Dame.
Okay. Well, the margin's the same. I could see yours being easily correct there if our defense just plays like it's expected to. I got a bad feeling. I mean, I only have them 7 points more than you do here, but I also have us scoring a few more points. It could go either way. I think it really could. I wouldn't be shocked at all, but look, you got to win this game. You got to win every game the rest of the year. That's the situation we're in, and you're going to have a showdown with LA at the end of the season. Hopefully that's for a playoff game. And every time we've gone to LA with the chance to make the playoff or a BCS national championship game, guess what? We've gotten the job done. So that's what we're building to, Steve. I can't wait to get there.
Hallelujah. Let's get to the promised land. I think that's pretty much the agenda this week. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. There is a share button that is on the podcast that you are currently listening to. I know for a fact that there is somebody in your life, whether it's an uncle, a brother, or someone at work, or someone that you went to school with, high school or college. There is someone in your life that you at some point talk Notre Dame with. So if you are listening right now, you're going to hit that share button, and you're going to send it to that person, and you're going to say, listen to this ahead of game week. Let's get fired up. Go Irish. That's my full statement at this time.
I love it. Thank you for listening, as always, guys. At Horseman Pod on Twitter, also on Instagram. A 5-star review would go a long way for getting this visibility and continuing this project we're on. This is 7 years now, Steve. Can you believe we're on our 7th season?
It's crazy. The first ever game we ever did was Labor Day weekend against Michigan when we won 24-17. And I remember being in Newport drinking beers with Mr. Wagon at that point in time. And the path that we've been on and getting all the way to here, it's been a hell of a ride. Can't wait for many more seasons ahead.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Go Irish.